What is the difference between a CEO and a martial artist? If you're Mark Zuckerberg, nothing at all. The Facebook founder has been on the pinnacle of the tech world since he founded his social media behemoth, which made him one of the richest men in the world. But now he has his eyes set on another milestone, the journey to become the best martial artist he can be. And in this rough and painful world of martial arts, he is closer to one man more than any other. His trainer and sparring partner, who is behind the Meta CEO becoming a blue belt and towards his ultimate goal of a black belt. The man behind Zuck's love for MMA. The one who readied him to challenge Elon Musk to a cage fight. A PFL fighter whose opponents do not dare blink or miss his lightning-fast strikes. He is California's own, none other than Khai, the Shadow, Wu. Meet the man who made Zuckerberg a fighter.
Hello there, and welcome to the ES FanCast, stories from insiders for the fans, an immersive interview experience that gets you, the fan, a peek inside the world of your favorite stars like never before. The FanCast gets you front row seats to your favorite athletes and their teams, interact with your stars, answer polls, and explore our content-rich feed. And today, we have a really special guest, man, who's been instrumental in shaping the physical and mental prowess of one of the world's most influential figures. I'm your host, Noah Lack. And our guest today is none other than Khai Wu, Khai the Shadow Wu, baby.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. I'm super excited. Always love doing these kind of things and chatting it up with new people, very exciting.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Are you ready to just this is how we just dive into this thing. You ready to just get into it?
Sure, whatever you got. I'm good.
All right. So let's start with Mark, man. You've known Mark for a long time now. Obviously you guys have been training, in the gym. Can you give some insight on how he trains? Is he just like another one of the guys? Like, how does that work?
Yeah. I don't think you could get really good at martial arts if you're not training like a martial artist. You can't get special treatment here and there. So yeah, I mean, it's very simple. With him, it's just another day. People always expect me. I feel really bad too, and people always expect these extraordinary description of how it is with him. It's like, I'm sorry, man, it's really boring. It's almost like you wouldn't, if you didn't know who he was and you just trained with him on the mats, you wouldn't know anything. Like, you wouldn't notice any difference other than he's really strong, very athletic, but it's like he's just like a martial artist. He's just like another student of the game on the mats.
Just another one of the boys rolling around on the mat.
Exactly.
Yeah. Obviously, obviously the elephant in the room in the past couple of months, I guess, fans were excited about Mark trying to take on Elon in an MMA cage match. And although those rumors obviously have cooled down, I think just for Twitter chats and for engagement, right? It'd be unfair for us to just put a full stop to the potential chats, right? And talks about the fight. Theoretically, could you give insight into a secret plan that you would use to train Mark against Elon if that fight were to ever happen in the future? How would you help him prepare for that theoretically?
Well, to answer that question, the way I've been kind of talking about it is to not re-flare up the rumors, just because I think Mark is actually interested in moving on to an actual, I don't know, he's such a competitive guy that he wants something legit. Everything he does, even that jiu-jitsu tournament, he signed up on his own. You know what I mean? He does everything just I don't want to say by the books necessarily, but he's, once that whole Elon thing kind of spiraled out of control and what he posted on Threads, he was like, I'm moving on to someone a little bit more professional who's willing to cut weight, this and that. It kind of that was the direction we ended up going. And if he wants to fight an actual fighter in whatever league or whoever he wants, I'm there to back him up. Exactly. I just go by what he said last on his Threads post about this. And theoretically speaking, though, if I was to game plan against Elon, which we were, realistically, Elon's just, he's 53. He's, not in the best shape to kind of, put things in perspective, right? So I don't know. It's a very simple game plan. It's just drag those guys into deep waters, try to survive the first couple minutes, circle around, move around, and then as the fight gets later in the round, Elon is going to gas, and I honestly think that's why Elon didn't take the fight, because of I think he realized he brought in some professionals and they gave him some feedback and they're like, hey, Elon, I don't think this is a good idea for you to take it. I think that's what he was like. starting all those
I don't
antics.
want the
And again,
smoke. I don't.
yeah, exactly. I don't think he did at the end of the day. Truthfully, I don't think he did. Maybe he was interested at one point, but yeah. And just to piggyback kind of off what I was saying earlier was just, I think it as cool. It's like Godzilla versus King Kong of a match that would have been. Truthfully speaking, it's like because it's not happening and more kind of want to move on out of respect. I was just kind of like, all right, I don't think. I think we should focus on what might actually happen, and what might actually happen is he wants to compete in maybe jiu-jitsu again or an actual fight with someone in his weight class or similar. But I don't know. It's honestly up to him. Like who would have thought a billionaire like him would want to get into jiu-jitsu in the first place, and compete, so it's like very, very random, very interesting.
I was just gonna say, I was just gonna, talk about the weight class thing. Like, aren't they in like completely different weight classes? Like, isn't Elon like? I feel like Elon is like over 6 feet, closer to the 200-pound range. Isn't Mark a little shorter, maybe like 155, 160? Don't quote me here, but is that accurate? Like, aren't they?
Yeah, I think Elon was like 230 and 6'2", maybe, or something like that. I don't know. He's a
Damn,
big guy, and that
football
definitely
player.
plays a factor. Yeah, yeah, that definitely plays a factor. But once you get the age in there, I think it's older and also cardio wise. A fight is a it's a sanctioned. It's not like a street brawl where one guy has 30 seconds to try to hit the guy and win, or it's an actual sport. So there's rounds, there's 5-minute rounds, and then depending on how many rounds that it was going to be, I don't know. It's just all speculation. But at the end of the day, you get in there with Mark, someone whose endurance is amazing. He's in shape, young. I don't know. That's tough to deal with. It's really tough. And obviously, I'm saying that because that's my boy. That's Mark. That's my guy. I'm gonna
Yeah,
be in my guy's corner every time. But at the end of the day, they decided to go whichever direction they ended up going. So it was really fun while it lasted.
it sounds like you're a big believer in Mark's gas tank. It sounds like that's something you guys have worked on. Because you kept
Well,
talking about like lasting more than one round. Like the gas tank. It sounds like the gas tank is there.
I mean, yeah, but it's not so much his gas tank. It's more that Elon's out of shape. So anyone that's out of shape, versus someone who constantly runs and does certain type of exercises, I just don't think it's. Yeah, it's not necessarily like, even if I'm out of shape, I feel like I could outrun someone that's 230, 6'2", and 53 years. You know what I mean? Like I just think if you like in terms of like fight IQ wise, it's just simple. Like just take the guy into deep water because he's not going to get in shape.
Yeah, and the quickness factor, and no, it's interesting to think about the weight classes, and regardless of what fight Mark takes or he wants to pursue, I think
Mhm.
there'll be noise from the MMA world. Maybe some might call
Yeah.
it a gimmick fight, etc. But it sounds like you're trying to say, man, like, please, this is just the opposite because everything Mark does, like, it's serious. This is the next Mark takes. It's a real ass fight. It's not a gimmick fight. Like, what's your level? What's your take on his level of dedication? I know you spoke to it a little bit.
Well, it's like with anyone. It's like imagine you wanted to fight, people, or just a normal person, an average everyday individual who's not on Mark status. If they wanted to fight, you go through the amateur ranks or you take a low level pro fight, and then that's a goal of yours, right? So I don't really get the whole gimmick thing. Like it's like Dylan Dennis, with the whole Logan Paul thing. Like, was that a gimmick, or they have such a huge following that they could generate revenue and all that stuff. So I don't really understand gimmick. And it's not like people are saying they're the best boxers in the world. Maybe Dylan said that, or Logan said he's a really good boxer. But the truth of the matter is, like, that's what sells. Now, if Mark fights, people can call it whatever they want, but the truth is he's putting in the time to actually
Sure.
prepare for a fight, right? So if I'm not saying he is, it's just I don't want to get misquoted. But if he did decide to fight, it's like at least he's dedicating his time and putting some, you know, he's elevating the whole like industry. You know what I mean? Because you're getting guys like him to do it. And in the more recent years, boxing is getting more and more popular due to the fact that guys like Logan Paul, Jake Paul, and Nate Diaz, they're getting into that realm. Jorge Masvidal said something about potentially fighting in boxing next year. So it's like I don't see it as a bad thing because competition is good. Like if anyone knows anything about like economics or anything, it's like competition is good. It's good for the
Yeah.
economy. It's good for businesses and brands to kind of have a rivalry with someone. It creates two different consumer bases and just elevates the whole thing. So I don't see it as a gimmick. I would say gimmick is more of like I think it'd be more like it's more for like a financial gain. You know what I mean? Like if I was just trying to secure the bag or something like that. Whereas clearly he doesn't need any money, so he's not doing it for for money.
Yeah. What's like a real, do you have a real use case? Not to put you on blast, like a real use case, like what is a gimmick like fight to you?
Well, I think a
Like,
gimmick fight would be like someone who goes into MMA to just make money, or like boxing. They just go in there to make money without having any real fighting skills. The thing is, Dylan Dennis was a world champion in jiu-jitsu and a very, very legitimate martial artist who also fought in Bellator. Like you can't call him a gimmick fighter when he's actually went out there and fought. Logan Paul seems to have taken this somewhat serious. Jake Paul's actually fighting, former UFC champions. Hate him all you want, but the truth is he's actually getting in there and fighting. Kind of
sure,
like
sure.
Logan Paul is doing something similar. Regardless if your goal is to be a world champion, the fact that you're taking fighting seriously, cutting weight, meeting at an agreed weight in contract, I think that there's somewhat to be said about that. But in terms of gimmick, like I was saying, it's like a guy that just goes into fights. I remember in Japan back in the day, I think there's a couple gimmick fights, such as like maybe not to diss him or anything, but a couple of Bob Sapp's fights. I think he just went in there to collect some money. He's a big, strong, athletic guy. And I think he would admit it himself that he went in there just to take some fights, like not dives per se, but he'd go in
Right.
there knowing he probably is going to lose, but he wants to make some money. So props to him,
For sure.
for making money. Like, who am I to judge? But I think that's more considered a gimmick fight. Or when Muhammad Ali was fighting back in Japan against forgot the guy's name. He slaps people, but he was trying to wrestle Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali got on the ropes, and it was like original. I mean, like that's more of a little bit of a
Yeah.
gimmick fight because it's like you can't give Muhammad Ali boxing gloves and boxing shoes, and then his opponent. It's just like a very weird rule set. Whereas there's no clear cut winner, and it's very like confusing unless you have like Dylan and Logan both agree to box. They want to fight under those rules, and they know it. And then at the end, it kind of fizzled out because they started playing around, and that's yeah, people would argue it's a gimmick fight, but in terms of the fighter himself, I don't think they're gimmick fighters. I think that fight might have ended up to be somewhat of a just ridiculousness. I think it was a chaotic fight. You can't blame anyone, but
Gosh.
itself.
No, that's very helpful. Thanks for like discerning this like drawing
That's
a
my
line
opinion.
there. Yeah. No, I mean, you're the fighter, man. Like I respect your opinion. You're the recent PFL signee. So I'm gonna take that as someone who genuinely like it's hard to tell these days. And on the topic of celebrity boxing, I actually want to come back and ask you that a little bit later and how you feel about that. And thanks for we'll put a pin that for a second. Before we flip the page here on Mark and this whole Elon chat, like, so you're saying like there's probably no chance that they like can we actually expect a fight of theirs in the future, or have we turned the page here? Like, what do you think will actually happen?
I mean, you never know because you never thought that was going to be a fight in the first place. But if you go back and defer back to Mark's last thread about that fight and conversation, he said he wanted to move on. And if he says that, I believe it. And I haven't heard anything since. So, I'm with Mark. Whatever he wants to do, I'm backing him on it. But yeah, that's the last thing I kind of heard about it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I wonder if Elon's secretly training for
I'm
thinking
sure. I mean,
that
honestly, I'm sure he's so smart. He's probably got a bunch of like. I mean, he's trying to run X and he's trying to do rockets. I don't know. The guy's so busy. I don't see how. I don't know. If I was him, I'd stay do a bunch of like the Tesla rockets. Something that's like he's super smart and a genius. I just feel like he's so much busier. And yeah, that's what I would do if I was him.
For sure. For sure. I appreciate you addressing that. I know it's been a lot of hoopla around it. If that ever does
Yeah.
happen, man, we'll send you the link and you can broadcast on the ES FanCast stream.
Yeah.
Anyways, man. So in July we saw Mark training with Israel Adesanya, Alex Volkanovski. I mean, two absolute UFC legends. I think it was Volk who shared the pictures of them on X. Was it coincidence that they ran into each other, or do like they actually train together often?
Are you talking about Volk and Izzy, or Izzy, Volk, and Mark?
Izzy, Volk, and Mark.
Oh, I'm not sure how their relationship is. I just know Mark is a big fan of fights. I mean, he's even trained with Johnny Eblen, the middleweight champ of Bellator before. So I think Mark's just like likes all these fighters, and you know, he's just a big fan of the fighting. Like he's genuinely supportive of that. So I don't know how frequent they meet because, it's very not boring, but I'm very professional. I just get the job done. I train Mark, do my business, and I just kind of leave. I don't ever overstay my welcome, if you get what I'm saying, or
Yeah.
put my nose where it doesn't belong. I just stay very professional. I think that's why Mark ended up liking us as a team. It's not just me that trains; it's also a few others from Guerrilla Jiu Jitsu. Dave Camarillo, who is also a coach, and he was seen in photos training Mark and cornering him at tournaments, as well as James Terry. So I do want to make sure those guys are credited to helping Mark win jiu-jitsu. It wasn't necessarily just me. Dave's the head instructor and the black belt there. I just do a little bit more striking at MMA base, and it's close to his size. That's all. So I do want to give credit where credit is due. But yeah, I think we get the job done. We go in there, teach him, and that's it. And when Mark has training, it's just like that's it. We just go to the mat, do a quick session. That's why I always tell people, I'm like, man, sorry, it's very, very simple and kind of boring, honestly. My stories with Mark is it's just train, get the job done, and leave. And he's very supportive. Obviously, he released that video with me and him training that one time. But other than that, I don't know his personal schedule, so I don't know how often he sees Grove or Izzy. But yeah, that was a really cool experience meeting Izzy for the first time, and I saw both for the second time, I think. But yeah, they're very nice. It was really cool seeing everyone train together.
Yeah, you don't know how they met?
No, I don't know. I don't know a lot of like I'm assuming Mark is Mark, so he's just super cool, and he's like if he reaches out to you, he reaches out to you. You know what I mean? Like I just feel like that's how he is.
Hey, Izzy, you want to train? Yeah, bet. All right, see ya.
Yeah,
See ya.
something like that.
Kai's gym in Tracy.
Yeah. I don't know if my gym's cool enough for those guys, but yeah, I think they that's honestly, I think Mark's just like a bro, like that. He just like, all right, you guys want to train, or like, hey, Volk, I like your fighting style, let's train. I'm pretty sure that's how he does things. I don't know. I can only assume.
No, that's cool. And you mentioned another gentleman another champ at Bellator. Can you name all the other guys you've seen him train with? Like he's trained with anyone else from the UFC or?
Not that I know of. I just know Johnny Eblen and because he posted photos with them. Oh, I think Daniel Cormier too. I think they posted a photo together.
Daniel Cormier?
Yeah, I think so. So yeah, I mean it was pretty cool, but not like I know about as much as you guys, because if I'm not there and he trains with someone, he posts a photo, that's what I see. It's not like he keeps me in the loop on all these things, or it's not super technical like that.
Yeah. I mean, talk about like polar weight classes, Mark Zuckerberg and Daniel Cormier. That's an interesting combination. So obviously like Zuck trains, regularly. We're seeing some other, celebs try to train for MMA separately. Do you think, evaluating Mark's skill level, his ability to get in the cage, do you think, he could take on like a Keanu Reeves or like a Venom himself, or a Tom Hardy inside the cage right now?
I don't know. There'd have to be weight classes, and he'd have to really. I mean, the truthful answer is I think Mark can do anything he wants if he puts his mind to it, because he's dominated like almost everything he's done. So, but again, that's if he wants to fight. So I don't know if he wants to fight. Yeah, I'm sure we can help him get ready, this and that. But the only guarantee I could give is I'm fighting. I don't know if he. I just don't know. With him, it's very like up in the air. I never would have thought I'd be working with someone like him. So never say never. But at the same time, the only guarantees I could ever make are with what I do. Whereas with him, it's like, I don't know, like if he wants, sure. Size wise, there would, you know, I just think fighting in a weight class that you're closer to makes more sense. That's why there's weight classes for a reason. You know what I mean? So
Sure,
that's
sure.
that's kind of like what I think on him competing with other people. But true student of the game works really hard. You know, like I'm inspired by him all the time.
Yeah. No gimmick fights around here, man. Make your weight, same weight class, all of that.
Yeah.
All of that. And of course, man, we're talking MMA, and it's like it's hard when we're talking like UFC, MMA. It's hard not to mention the notorious, Conor McGregor, perhaps one of the biggest ambassadors of the sport. And interestingly enough, he has a connection, semi-connection with you guys. He paid, you guys a compliment on you and Mark's sparring footage. I think it was an Instagram comment. Like, when did you find out about this? Like, who noticed it? And like, what was Mark's reaction to it?
I wasn't around when he dropped it. I think he just dropped the video and I saw it. I think it was like literally the day of my fight last year in September. But I mean, I think it was just I was so focused on my fight that I didn't get to see it. And then that fight, it didn't go my way either. So I don't think I was blown away by comments. I was more like pissed that like I got the fight and the video dropped at the same time and I couldn't deliver it. I was just more mad at myself for how the fight went because it was a weird time during that time. It was like our gyms were coming back from COVID, so we didn't have a full team. It's like, man, all the stars were aligned except I just couldn't deliver. So I was more mad at myself. So I had to do a lot of self-discovery. And before that fight, the last time I fought was in 2021. I had a bunch of fights fall through because it was all during COVID times. So if you look at before COVID, I was on a 4-fight win streak. And then during COVID, I had those 2 fights a year apart from each other, essentially, and 2 losses. So imagine going on a 4-fight win streak to losing 2 fights in 2 years. You're just like looking at yourself every day. You're just like, dude, this is not me. I'm not this guy. I'm not a guy who sucks. And then even the way I lost too wasn't like a complete domination. I was winning both fights pretty decisively, almost winning actually, like knocking a guy out. But the one in 2021 was due to high elevation in Colorado. I didn't know that. I went not short notice, but I left to go there and didn't get acclimated on time. Round 1 was dominant, and then round 2, I just no gas tank. And it's experience on my end. I'm not blaming my opponent because he was skilled enough to see that. My 2022 fight, it was like I didn't fight for a year. I took the fight thinking I could beat him, and I was wrong. I underestimated the guy. The fight was pretty even on the feet, just not enough. I just didn't know enough moves, and I had to go back to the drawing board and just kind of. So, going back to the video, it was like that time, just to give you a perspective where my head was at.
You had tunnel vision. You were locked
exactly.
in. You were
exactly
like
yeah. I just wasn't. I didn't have time to see McGregor's comments and like, oh shoot, McGregor commented. I was just like, man, how did I not deliver on the win? But it's actually really cool because fast forward a year later, I actually met with John Kavanaugh. I posted a photo of me and him at a business meeting on Instagram, and he was like the nicest guy ever. And obviously everyone pays attention to McGregor coming up and all, me, I started fighting professionally in 2018 and McGregor was already on the rise, this and that. So obviously I take a lot of inspiration from him, but more than anything, I was always a bigger fan of his coach, John, and me and my coach would emulate our training styles and mentality off. My coach is very similar to John in terms of their demeanor. I think they're both very calm. If anything, my coach is a little bit more calm than John, a little too calm. Sometimes I need him to yell at me during training or
curse you out,
fights because I can't hear him. He's so like mellow, monotone. But meeting John was like super cool. So you can only imagine, everyone talking about Conor, this and that. I'm just like a big fan of John, and then I end up having dinner with him. I'm just like, oh, John, this is so cool, and he's like the nicest dude in the world. You can can you imagine being like an all-star coach? And he's sitting there actually chatting with you about your day. Oh, how's it going? Congratulations on this. Congratulations on that. That's really cool. So how long you been training? Like he actually asked questions, like just as a nice guy, So it's just really cool. I couldn't believe it. I was just like shocked. I was like, wow, John is legit. Like what you see is what you get on social media and his interviews. He's like that in real life, and I didn't know him, and he didn't know me. So it's not like, he was. I don't know, trying to look for favors or anything. He's just a very nice guy. I'm sure he doesn't need any. He has Conor, like, so it was just really cool meeting him.
Yeah, yeah. I'm wondering. I wonder. So did Mark ever tell you what his reaction was when uh Connor sent that note? Or I can imagine Mark like having like a cup of
I,
coffee
I
at Meta
think
offices
I
and
think he's
seeing it and
too
just spitting it
busy.
out.
I think he's too busy with work and life to kind of like just, hey, did you see the guy's I don't know. I
Sure.
assume he's way too busy because he's got like, 70,000 employees or something like that. So I don't know. And I'm
Yeah, for
pretty
sure.
sure to him, as big of a fan as he is, it's like he works with, who he works with. And I mean, he posted a photo with him and Robert Downey Jr. like maybe earlier this year or something like that. So I'm like, Connor to him is probably just a just another athlete to him. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah, no,
I can only assume.
yeah, no, it's probably a safe assumption in sort of a different reality. I wanted to ask you about the tourney that Mark was in, the so-called choking incident, right? Or so they say, right? And sort of the reaction around it. What were your thoughts on sort of that particular fight Mark was in? And like, what did you say to him in terms of like feedback or like adjusting his game so that like the loss doesn't happen?
Oh, I mean, I think it happens like in jujitsu tournaments. Even when I was so I used to coach out of guerrilla jiu-jitsu. I had some kids that used to compete, and the kids, you want to be extra cautious. So like if they got their arms straightened out, or like if they're in a choke, you might stop it prematurely. And I've even had matches where I didn't tap, but the guy stopped it early just because it's safe. And it's a local tournament, so it's like at the end of the day, it's not the end of the world. But obviously, it sucked that it happened. But it's like you have another match, so it's not the end of the world. So I think that thing got played up a little bit bigger than it actually was, just
Sure.
because it's him. He's literally that guy that any topic you bring up with his name, it creates clicks and this and that. So I think it was a little bit more blown out of proportion. So when people ask me about, it, I'm like, it wasn't that serious. The ref made a mistake. He apologized, and the head official came over and just scratched that into a no contest or whatever it was. I don't even know. That's how not big of a deal it was. Where we didn't even care because he had like two more matches after that or three. They're just like, whatever,
Yeah.
move on. This happens, especially in jiu-jitsu. It's not like MMA where it goes on your record forever. It's like jiu-jitsu, no one cares. I've lost like three jiu-jitsu matches, four jiu-jitsu matches in a row, and then I found my groove again. It's like one of those things where it doesn't really matter, in my
What was
opinion.
do you know the mistake like the ref made?
The ref thought he was going unconscious, I think, and then he stopped it, and the mark was like, I'm fine. So I think the ref just made a mistake. That's all.
Got it. So Mark might have been playing possum, you know what I mean, for his opponent.
I don't know. I just feel like I think when you're
I'm
in
just kidding. I'm
chokes,
just kidding.
sometimes, well, I would agree to play possum, except it was just a very weird angle that I didn't even know what happened. Like as soon as the match ended, I was like, what happened? But it happens. Again, it happens, and I don't want to bash the referee. I saw a lot of negative uh, comments on the ref, so I'm kind of like, I don't want to give the ref crap again and bring it up, and he gets flamed on the internet again or something like that.
I'm not a fighter, but like that'd be my move, man. Play possum or hit the God, what's the one of the best the Black Beast, Derek Lewis, like acting like
Oh,
he's hurt and then coming and
yeah,
swing.
yeah, yeah. Dude, that's smart. Derek Lewis, man, he's funny, he's entertaining, and yeah, he acts like he's hurt, and the next thing you know, he comes after you. Yeah, that's actually a
Dude,
very
that's
good
such a
tactic because people
legendary,
get. Yeah,
so
yeah, I
legendary.
agree.
um so and another UFC guy, we got to talk about Patty the Batty Pimblett. Patty gave a shout out to the Zuckerberg team, but maybe not as friendly as Connor's. As the UFC star was banned from one of Meta social platforms, which obviously led him to making the drastic, taking a drastic measure on a joke, of course. What did you ever get Mark's reaction on Patty's comments, and did Mark ever joke about taking it to the octagon?
I don't think so, not off the top of my head, and I don't really ever recall what Patty. I don't know anything about. I thought, if I do remember correctly, Patty said something about just give him his account back or something like that. I don't know. I didn't pay much attention to that one. I didn't hear anything about
Okay. Okay. Yeah. That's we'll have to circle back to that one. Um, Zuck has been to a lot of UFC fights. Like he went to the one with Mackenzie Dern. And there were reports. I laugh when I like read this off the questionnaire script. There are reports that like Zuck booked an entire arena for a fight. And then like Dana White was like, no, we can't do that. Do you know what if Mark has a relationship with
it.
Dana and like do you know like what that was like, or that maybe
I
that
mean, I
exchange?
would assume that he's friends with Dana because they're both very rich and successful, powerful guys. But I wouldn't know anything about that. Again, at the end of the day, it's like I just go train him. I'm not, constantly texting him like, "Hey, Mark, did you do that?" It's like I don't think it's professional to do that. But at the same time, I mean, if he goes and enjoys UFC fights, I don't see what's the harm in that. That's his business, and if he likes watching fights, more power to him.
I swear, hey man, if I get a ticket for UFC 300 and I realize that my ticket is void because someone booked out the whole arena, uh, I would be, I'd be hot, man. I'm trying to get PFL ticket. I'm trying to see Khai Wu's next fight, man. I can't have anyone reserve it like it's a restaurant.
Is that what happened? Is that what was like said?
No, I'm just shooting the shit. I'm kicking the
No,
kid.
no, no. I meant like,
Yeah.
is that what they said about him booking? He booked the UFC or something like that.
There was reports. I don't know, like I can't confirm,
Oh,
obviously, like me
interesting.
just yeah.
Yeah,
So
no,
I
I've
don't.
never heard this. You're bringing a lot of news to me, which is good because again, me too. Like other than the fight game, I kind of keep to my training and myself, and I have a lot of other stuff going on, so I don't hear some of these things sometimes. So when you bring it up, I actually like I was about after this call, this chat, I was actually going to Google what Patty said about it because I was like, I've never heard about
And this stuff was news to me. So now I'm taking the news,
this.
and
Yeah,
we're learning together. We're learning
yeah,
together.
interesting.
Uh, obviously you have a very professional relationship with Mark. Um, but I don't know if you've ever sort of interacted with his family. Do you know if they're like super supportive of these MMA endeavors? Obviously, to be a good MMA fighter, man, and you get it better than anyone, it takes a lot of time to really perfect your craft. You have like obviously he's running a multi-billion-dollar company, one of the most powerful companies in the world. And so when you allocate even more time to something else, right, you use up a lot of hours, whether it's Mark's wife or his family. Has anyone like, have you heard of anyone, are they supportive of his, MMA endeavors?
I don't know, but I remember his thread about his the cage thing. That was super funny with his wife. That interaction that they did, that was actually super funny. I found that entertaining. But no, I mean, I have no idea. I would assume that if he keeps training, they're okay with it. I mean, I don't know.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. 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 I just like, I mean, you can imagine, man, like even if all you did was train for an MMA fight, like you're like that. When you go into that zero dark 30 mode, especially right before the fight, those 6
Yeah,
weeks leading up to it,
it's
you're
tough.
probably not spending too much time with your family, right?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I don't know. A lot of people handle it differently. I have a student and teammate of mine, Nick. He like goes away from his family and his family is super cool with him, like kind of like they're very supportive. So he's a different environment. He's a different kind of like mental mentality. He likes to kind of be away from everything and he likes to kind of make himself suffer. For me,
Yeah.
I'm gone from my parents a lot because my parents are over in Asia. So after my fights I could go see them, and even before that, I do like you focus so much on fight and then like there's holidays coming up. Like I think my weigh-ins are Thanksgiving Day, so I think I could still eat, but at the same time, it's not like I'm like I think yeah, the weigh-ins are the 23rd, and that's when Thanksgiving is for PFL. So and then Black Friday, you're supposed to go shopping, but instead I'm fighting. It's weird. I don't know. So
Yeah.
I know for me and my student, I think mentality wise, it's up to the guy if they want to be around a bunch of family or teammates and whatever. I know for me, I like to enjoy the stuff after because you feel like you're having a little bit of too much fun before the fight. You kind of like,
Yeah,
I don't know, you mentally, you just kind of like, oh, I can't have fun before the fight. You give yourself a little bit of pressure, you know? So, yeah.
for sure. For sure. And your nickname, like Khai the Shadow Wu, if Mark were to go up against Elon or actually another fighter, like what nickname? Okay. First of all, I have a really good one that I'm like biting at the chops to share with you. But like, what would you give Mark's fighting nickname?
I don't know. I've actually never thought about that. Maybe like the meta. I don't know. That sounds pretty cool. I played Call of Duty a little bit, Warzone. So like every
Okay,
week we're talking about like the new meta, the new meta. So I was just thinking, I was like, yeah, he could be the meta. But yeah,
the meta. All right, you ready for this one?
sure.
All right, the Zucker punch.
But what if he's a good grappler? Like, what if he's a really good grappler and he submits guys?
I
He's
mean,
not a puncher.
I didn't, I, I didn't think that far, but like, come on, man, the Zucker punch, bro. You gotta put that one on the trucks. At least tell Mark I said I suggested the Zucker
We got to
punch.
keep working on that. We got to keep working on that one.
You're not a fan of the Zucker punch?
I don't know about that. I gotta sit on that one a little bit. Let it digest.
Okay, damn it. I thought that one was gonna land.
Good. Hey, good try though. Good try, but yeah, we'll keep
I
working
was
on
thinking about that. I was thinking about that all night, man. I like am responsible for his fighting name. All right. Uh no worries, man. But let's transition back to you, man, specifically. You recently signed a deal with obviously the PFL, UFC's, currently the biggest competitor. Talk about how did PFL approach you? And did your agency reach out? Or did they reach out first? Like, how did that process work?
Oh, it was actually pretty cool. It was they reached out. They reached out, and the gentleman I spoke with was Lauren, and a couple other promotions reached out. But what I really liked about PFL was that they're kind of straight to the point. I like I don't know. A lot of people tend to fluff you up and say this and say that, and like sell you all the good stuff. But with
Sure.
PFL, they're just kind of straight to the point, and they told me, here's the pros, here's the cons. It's up to you what you want to do. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. So I kind of sat on it for a little bit, but we stayed in touch for a little bit. I think PFL wants the best fighters in the world, or they want to build. So they're like, hey, can you get a couple more fights before we sign you? Can um, can you just like be more active? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. So I think I had a fight international this year in Taiwan in February, got the win, and then that's when they reached back out again, and they're like, hey, we've been keeping an eye on you, way to get back on the winning track, and you're doing good. And I don't know, it seems like they asked me a couple questions about Asia, so maybe they want to branch out to Asia, PFL Asia. I'd love to spearhead that and help them with that. So um yeah, I think that's
I
why they're
feel like that's a
interested.
huge, I feel like that's a huge untapped market, man. Like I know
Yeah,
the UFC is like operating in Abu Dhabi in the Middle East, but we're talking Asia right now, and that's very interesting.
yeah. So who knows? Fingers crossed. Just got to get that win, and then after that, maybe some things can fall into place, and then we could really look into getting PFL out in Asia because they have a PFL Europe.
It sounds like this was an easy decision for you. Like,
Yeah, yeah. I think it just took me to discuss a little bit of things with my family and management and friends and coaches, and then we all kind of came to the same agreement. No one said no. Everyone was just like, "Well, is this what you want?" Or like, "Are you sure?" And then it just kind of worked out that way. So actually, I'm very happy with where we're at, and they've been great so far. I haven't even fought for them yet, and they've already been very attentive and uh, keeping me busy with the interviews and all this stuff. So I appreciate them. I appreciate this opportunity too. And I didn't expect my first fight with them to be on the championship card, to be honest with you. So that says a lot.
damn, they said throw him to the wolves.
Yeah, seriously, no warm up fight, no nothing. They just throw me in. So that way, if I win, there's no excuses.
Hey, that's what's up, though. I mean, knowing what you know about both leagues, like, what do you think is the difference between the UFC and the PFL in terms of negotiations, doing business? You've worked with the UFC and sort of, past fight matches. What do you see the big difference there?
I don't know. I worked, so I fought for UFC Fight Pass, but I don't know like negotiations with the actual UFC. The only thing I ever had was before COVID, it was like a Contender Series opportunity, but it's not like directly UFC, you know what I mean? So it's still like I had to go through Contender Series, but COVID happened. Um, and I'm kind of glad the way things went the way they did because maybe at that time I don't think I was equipped with as much knowledge and skills as I am now. So I think
Yeah.
where I ended up landing is where I belong. Like I needed to take some losses to learn more, to educate myself more, to really understand myself. Confidence comes from knowing, not from this fake bravado that you put up. You could lie to yourself all you want, you could fake it till you make it, all those things. But truthfully speaking, confidence comes from knowing, and I think I know now what I'm capable of and where I'm lacking. So because of that, I think it led me here today and it worked out for the better. But again, I can't really speak too much on like I don't know the negotiations with UFC. I don't know their deals and structure. But what I can say is on my own, I used to watch like this is literally me just talking, not like a selling point or anything. But
Sure.
I was watching PFL when there was World Series of Fighting, and then they became PFL, and I thought that was super interesting. I love their tournament format. I like staying active. I like fighting a lot. They don't have a 35 division, but they have expressed interest in maybe building something. I've heard those rumors with Bellator. So I don't know. Everything's a good possibility right now. I just got to get the win. But in terms of PFL and UFC, I just thought PFL had, untapped. I like to build. You know what I mean? I like to build with the people I know, this and that, and they seem to really be growing. So I was like, why not give that a try? And they also have that $1 million tournament. So I can't wait to see if they ever have a 35 tournament. And when they do, maybe I could get in a part of that.
Yeah, get you a piece of that action right there. That
Yeah.
sounds like a lot of fun. I mean, like, obviously, like, so you don't know there's no difference. Like you can't speak on any differences between sort of like, you haven't heard anything about like how Dana, works with fighters versus how the PFL has in your direct experience, sort of like with the PFL and negotiations.
I mean, I've heard things, but again, I've never interacted with Dana personally and PFL personally, so I can't really say on that. But what I do like that the standout is that you have the $1 million tournament in PFL versus the UFC where there's no tournament. Regardless
Now
if
that's
people
cool.
like
That
the
shit's
tournament
cool.
format. Yeah,
That's
exactly.
cool.
That's what kind of captured my attention. So even though there is no tournament for me yet, it's still cool.
No, that is pretty cool. And with that, keeping that in mind, like, what's your take here, man, on the PFL and its future? Like, do you think it could be like as big as the UFC one day?
Yeah, and like I was talking about earlier, I think competition is good. I think UFC has competition now, and it's good because PFL can reach out to certain audiences and crowds, and like you might like Sprite, and I might like Coke. You know what I mean? So there's always there's enough people that might not like the UFC product that will switch over this, and I see that as a competition is good. It's just going to elevate the bar. A rising tide raises all ships. So I definitely
Yep.
think with PFL and UFC kind of combating against each other in the coming years, it's good. It's a good market strategy. Fighters are fighters. It doesn't matter if they're in the UFC or PFL. Fighters are always going to. There's plenty of undiscovered talent out there, and they're waiting to be signed. And it's up to the promotion to make them into their stars and see and help them discover their true potential in terms of marketability, this and that. So I don't really look at it as company versus company in terms of fighter versus fighter. I look at it more as in like production quality, this and that. But I know plenty of guys that are in the UFC that could lose to PFL fighters and vice versa. So I don't really look
Yeah.
at it as fighter, like that anymore. We're in this day and age where there's so many fighters and there's so much talent out there that I don't think it's fighter versus fighter in terms of different companies, like a UFC versus PFL. I don't know. I just don't see that necessarily because there's a lot of guys from both that have gone to both. I don't know off the top of my head like the exact number, but I think it's worked out.
Sure. Sure. Um, and man, like the big talk of the PFL, the big fight right now, man, Francis Ngannou versus Tyson Fury. I mean, woo, that like I'm tuned in, that's for sure. Do you think Francis has a chance beating Tyson in this boxing match? Like, what can you give? Like, what's your predictions here? Like, how's this fight going to pan out, man?
I think, yeah, I mean, in boxing, especially heavyweights, there's always a one hitter quitter, like there's always a chance of someone getting knocked out. And frankly speaking, I don't know if Tyson Fury is taking Francis very seriously. And Francis has had a bunch of time to kind of rest up. And it's not like MMA where it's hard on your joints, your knees, this and that. He's kind of he's kind of just training and relaxing his body. Boxing training is so much easier on the body than it is. This is the truth. And most of my damage I've taken from MMA is from my fight camps, not even in the fight itself. So I do think Francis could get the job done. Now, is it likely? I don't know, but I know he has one of the hardest punches in the world ever recorded. So I actually think um, if Tyson Fury doesn't take him seriously, he could get slept, And I'm very excited for this fight just as much as you are. It's really good promotion kind of going into it. They shot this sick video of them training and all the power behind it. I look forward to it.
Yeah, me too. Me too, man. If you come up to San Francisco and watch it at a bar, man, let me know. We'll yeah, that'd be sick. And then also in talks, also another one we got to talk about, is the potential of Nate Diaz versus Jake Paul. Well, Paul proposed an MMA rematch in the PFL. With Nate officially leaving the UFC, what advice would you give him regarding, the PFL, a potential PFL move?
Oh, I don't know if I'm in any position to give him. I haven't even made my PFL debut yet. I don't know if I'm in any position to give Nate, advice, but he is in the 209 area. And I think he should take the fight with Jake. I don't think Jake's equipped in MMA as much as Nate is, and if he wants to, they can go 1-1, one for Jake in boxing and the one for Nate in MMA. I think it's a fun fight. I think it's exciting. I don't think Jake's a slouch, but I live in the 209 area and Jake's not an MMA guy. So I'm going to say, just with basic logic and on paper, Nate should win that fight.
Yeah, and I was just about to ask you. You think Nate has Jake easy in an MMA fight?
I don't know if easy is the right word, but I think it would be a lot easier in MMA for Nate to win than in boxing.
Sure. Yeah.
Submission.
So yeah, that's makes sense. Very, very safe play. Safe play there. Coming back to and remember, I wanted to circle back to sort of celebrities entering the fight game and the popularity and what's come about from that. Obviously you train with Mark, but you're seeing like I alluded to earlier, Keanu Reeves, Tom Hardy, Dave Bautista, they're venturing into MMA for various reasons. You said, you mentioned Mark doesn't get any special treatment. Do you think these other guys in these MMA gyms are getting any special treatment? Like what's your take from afar?
I don't think Tom Hardy is, because he's actually competing out there and winning. So I don't think he can get special treatment if he's competing. Tom Hardy, is a legit jiu-jitsu competitor. Like I've seen some of his matches. In terms of Batista, I don't know. I don't know enough about him. And Keanu Reeves, my brother-in-law and coach, Dave Camarillo, actually works with him and worked with him on John Wick 4. So I mean, he's getting a little bit older now. You can't be as rough with him, obviously. And the job of a stunt coordinator is to make the action star look good. So it's a little different. It's not necessarily cut from the same, like type of style of training and this and that, So it's hard to say. But Batista and I know Batista had an MMA fight before, and he won. So fair play to him. He's tough. He can actually fight. Keanu, I mean. I got nothing bad to say about the guy. He's such a nice guy and super cool, and did Matrix and John Wick. Like, I don't know. I've always been a big fan, so I don't know how legit his training is, but my brother-in-law did say he was a legit martial artist. Like, he can actually throw down if he had to.
There we go. Yeah, it's crazy, man. I want to get into boxing one day. I think like it's such a good sport to pick up, regardless of what previous sport or where you came from. So and your take, you talked about this earlier, and I was actually a little surprised, because you're a true fighter and like you've been a pro for a while. With the celebs entering into boxing, MMA, you know, I hear there's like this is a very seems like a very polar argument. You have the fighters saying like these guys are just gimmicky, this is all a show, and then you have people saying, well, these celebs are actually helping the popularity of the sport, which in turn is helping everyone. Like, where do you, what's your official take there?
Same thing as I said before, rising tide raises all ships. I think celebrities bring more attention because it's like if you want something to survive, you need money. You need funding in it no matter what you do. It doesn't matter if you have a good product or not. If no one's want to buy it, if there's no money in it, then it won't work. I saw a video of cars back in like the 40s or 50s. I might have the time frame wrong, but there was a wheel on the back of like where the trunk would be, and it opened parallel park. And I don't know why it didn't catch on. It was a great idea, but the fact that it didn't catch on was because there wasn't enough money, people buying into that system or whatever. So we all miss things like I'm sorry, not Best Buy, Blockbuster. That's what it was. We all miss Blockbuster and renting movies, but realistically, you don't need anymore because you have a bunch of streaming services. So, I think celebrities bring more eyes to the sport. Therefore, there's more money in it. And if there's more money in it, then that means I get paid more and it just elevates the sport as a whole, regardless if the celebrity is doing it for like an attention or doing it for whatever reason. Point is, you're just getting more eyes and you're flooding the market. You're elevating the market, I should say. So I think it's better that way.
So you're cool. You're cool with the Jake Pauls, Logan Pauls.
I don't see how it hurts.
Yeah, yeah, it's a good point. Well, I really appreciate this, Kai. I have one more for you before we close it. Before it's a wrap here. Obviously, Mark, his documentary was The Social Network, but do you think we should make a documentary around his MMA journey? Like, can we get some of that?
Yeah, maybe one day when maybe if he decides to do like a MMA fight, there could be like a countdown show or like a Netflix special, on him. I think that'd be super cool. I would be interested in it, obviously, because, I'm biased, but yeah, I think documentaries are super cool depending on who makes it. There's a lot of raw emotions to it. I think that brings a lot of, it opens a lot of eyes, for people to kind of see like, oh, wow, this is how it is. And, I think Mark's a very interesting character, person. And I think it'd be really cool for the world to kind of see him in a different light.
Dude, like Amazon Prime and Netflix, like a couple part series, documenting not only Mark, but like you training Mark and like that feeling of
Sure.
you have your business, but then then Mark Zuckerberg enters your ring and then you switch to him. I think that'd be fascinating.
Sure. I'm with you on that, Noah. I like it. I
Yeah.
like the sound of that. Maybe one day
Hey
it'll
man.
happen.
Hey, I'll be the Spielberg. We'll shoot it and and get it going, man. But
Sounds
man,
good, man.
Kai, I really appreciate this, man. This has been another great ES FanCast. I'm your host, Noah Lack, with Khai Wu, newest PFL fighter who is also trains Mark Zuckerberg. Kai, man, thank you so much for spending time with us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me on, and hopefully we could chat after I get the win.